So do you guys remember when Varka was in beta and people were saying that he was being released to balance power creep? Well, if you look at this character right here, this adorable kitten, she kind of just puts that to shame, because not only does she boost Zibai to the unconditionally best DPS in the game, but any Geo unit for that matter can be really good with her. And she's doing all of this with a 3-star weapon. Hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be talking about Linnea. In my first video, I did mostly just cover her prospects with Zibai and being an Illawa replacement, but now that we've gotten deeper into her beta and understand more about her and I've looked at different team options, as I suspected, there's a very good amount of flexibility with her. And if you want to see just how strong all the Geo DPS have gotten with her, then you want to stick around. But before we do that, as always, if at any point during the video you're entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to my lovely channel members. Your pillow will be cold when you go to sleep. You deserve it. And also, so in a week we will have the Skirk and the Skofia banners. So if you'd like to cut down on the costs while going for them, then I would like to announce the sponsor for today's video, LD Shop. LD Shop is a very safe and reliable top-up site that allows you to get Primo Gems at a great deal starting from 15% off, while keeping your data safe. As for transactions, you only need to type in your UID and region, as you can see me doing here. Just needed to quickly refresh my welkin, and as you can see, it's here. And make sure to use my link, as that way you'll receive an extra 15% off coupon, as well as a 5% off coupon which can save you up to $50. LD Shop goes through official channels as well, meaning that you won't lose any of the in-game benefits like first-time top-up bonuses, so no need to worry. And additionally, because LD Shop is so great, users who spend over $80 will receive a VIP membership which rewards you with free welcome moons. So head over to ldshop.gg using my link in the description below. What are you waiting for? Thanks to LD Shop for sponsoring this video, now back to it. So I've already covered what Linnea does in my first video and nothing has really changed since then. This has been one of the most boring beta cycles of all time, but to summarize, Linnea is a Geo sub DPS that can also heal with her burst, and most of her damage is oriented around doing direct lunar crystallized damage. So she's kind of like an Nepha but a healer. On top of this, she provides a constant 30% Geo res shred, and she also has a buff that converts 5% of her defense to elemental mastery, and this will be given to the on-field character if they're a moon sign character, or if they aren't a moon sign character, the buff will be transferred to Linnea herself, buffing her own damage. Now if you look at Linnea's kit on the surface, she isn't really anything that special. She really just doesn't buff that much, and her healing isn't the biggest deal in the world, but you have to remember Linnea is a Nordkreis support, so you have to remember the biggest thing she can do is just deal a ton of damage, and there are a ton of things in Linnea's kit that facilitate her high amount of damage. For starters, Linnea has no effective energy requirement in a lot of her teams. The only thing Linnea's burst offers is some healing, which you most likely won't need to do every single rotation, and you also most likely will be playing Linnea alongside another Geo character. So because of this, if you're casting her burst every 2 or every other rotation, her energy requirement is close to 0, so you can just full focus on building offensive stats. And on top of this, Linnea enables the lunar crystallized reaction, which only cares about your crit and elemental mastery stats, with more priority on your crit. And alongside the Morningstar set, which you should be using on Linnea, she most likely is going to have the highest lunar crystallized contribution. Her individual lunar crystallized procs are dealing like 20k damage. This hits 3 times, potentially more if you're using Columbina, on top of the big direct lunar crystallized damage hits in her base kit. So combine that all together and you get a problem. Moondress will deal damage every time you trigger 3 lunar crystallized reactions, so basically any Geo character allows you to get consistent procs of this. Oh, and also since Linnea only cares about crit, there is a free 3-star bow that gives you 60 CV, which is of course great for her own damage and lunar crystallized damage. So you put all of this together and Linnea becomes one of the best sub DPS for any Geo driver. And also I did kind of just lie, there is a case in which you want to use Linnea's burst when she's being run with Furina, as she's a teamite healer and can stack a decent amount of Furina's fanfare, and in those cases she'll need about 160 to 180% energy recharge, which is pretty manageable with just an energy recharge sans and a few substats, so it's not really that big of a deal even there. Now there's 2 ways to build Linnea teams. You are either running a full wheelchair double Hydra team with Furina, Columbina, and Linnea, and then your Geo DPS of choice, or you can run triple Geo teams, replacing Furina with either a Goro or Illawa. Both of these 4-stars are only worth considering if they are C6, and of course Goro only works with the defense scalers like Itto or Noelle. And if they are C6, they're all pretty comparable to what I'm about to show regardless. So basically both the wheelchair and triple Geo teams are relative. And just keep in mind, if you're running Illawa or Goro to make your Geo DPS deal more damage, it kind of doesn't really change that much, as both Illawa and Goro also buff Linnea and Columbina. And unlike in Furina teams, Linnea doesn't need to burst, so she can actually run a defense sense here. So unless you are Zibai, who has really high base damage regardless, who will actually also lose to Lunar Crystallized contribution if you aren't running a crit weapon, or your Geo DPS just has that much better investment than your future Linnea, it's very likely that even in a triple Geo team, she will either be matching or doing more damage than your Geo DPS. And really quickly, what is the Hoyoverse doing? Sorry to go on a tangent, but ever since Inefa, I don't understand this wheelchair focus Genshin has had. We haven't really gotten a strong buffer in a while, and it's kind of annoying that the best direction for most pre-Fontaine DPS, and even some of the Fontaine DPS, is just slapping them on a wheelchair team where they're doing 30% of the team's DPS, and then that's just it. John sub DPS is carrying your team. But of course, the only exception to this are the actual Lunar DPSs. It's really boring to me that we've essentially just gotten an Nefa 3 times as our dedicated Lunar DPSs. Even Durin's main strength at C0 is mostly his sub DPS damage, and he only really buffs with his C1 and C2. I don't know, compared to someone like Jalonin or even Farina when she came out, this day of supports hasn't really been fun, and I really hope once we enter Snezhnaya we just actually get back to having actual buffers, and not just having John sub DPS carry our team, as despite how good all of these sub DPS are right now, I feel besides Llama it's very likely that they can just get very easily replaced by the next strong batch of sub DPSs or supports, and as someone who's pulled Shunyun, things like this don't feel that great. Now before getting into the calculations, if you've already gotten this far into this video, you probably like me, so therefore stop stalling and please put the like and subscribe in the bag. Speaking of the bag, I've started a coffee around a month and a half ago where you can request in-depth account reviews and calculation commissions for any specific team you want, and I was also the first one to start one, so if you are interested in that, the link will be in the description below, where my Twitter also is, where I post my calculations very early. Enough yapping, let's get back to the video. Now for starters, let's go through Zibai one more time, in which her DPS is actually higher than what I first calculated, as I didn't factor in that with Linnea being a turret, it means that if you have Fav on Illawa, you can build around 120 to 130 energy recharge on Zibai and burst every single rotation with her, and this is better than bursting every other rotation, and also some minor gearing changes with running Illawa on SMS, and allowing both Columbina and Linnea to be on Morningstar, in which case Zibai is even better, being able to reach the 180k DPS range, but with some caveats like you using Harbinger of Dawn and getting consistent uptime on it, whilst not bursting every single rotation with Linnea, so she doesn't have to build energy recharge. And this does also require having a C6 Illawa, which I'm sure isn't that common, but even with a C2 Illawa, as you can see, that's still 156k DPS, putting her comfortably around the level of Nefer and Flynn's at that investment. So yeah, big win for the horse mains. Next, let's talk about a character who is very fun to calculate for me, Noelle. So if you guys are unaware, every single hit that Noelle does will apply Geo. Both her normal attacks and charge attacks while she's Geo enhanced have no ICD, so as long as you have Hydro on the enemy, every hit that she does will proc Lunar Crystallize, and therefore every 3 hits of her is a guaranteed Moondrift proc. So this means Noelle will generally have 1 more or maybe even 2 more Moondrifts than the average Geo team a rotation. And also in Noelle teams, she acts as the sustain herself, so it's another team where Linnea doesn't have to worry about building energy. So putting the ult together, even someone like Noelle can reach 100k DPS, which is nuts. And don't worry, because this is actually the worst performance out of everything I've calculated. Moving on, let's talk about Navia. Her burst allows her to contribute to every Moondrift, which sadly doesn't matter that much as she's always the lowest contributor anyways. Regardless, Navia has solid damage at a base even without significantly high buffing. Hell, around the time Navia released, she was already popular in double Hydro teams, and this new wheelchair core is just double Hydro but better. So of course Navia slots on here very well. And to anyone curious, both the Night Sky and the Whisper set are basically equal here, so if you already have a good Whisper set for Navia, don't bother farming a Night Sky set. And also, kind of slight warning, if you're already someone with decent vertical investment on Navia, like you have her constellations or weapon as they're actually pretty good, or you have something like Jalone stamina or endurance to. Those care a lot more about Navia's damage, and at least DPS wise should be relative to having this team. So if you already have good vertical for Navia outside of this, I wouldn't really feel that pressured to pull for Linnea unless you just want another option or you want to clear the Gecko boss. Now of course the last Geo DPS to look at is Itto. His double Hydra teams were kind of cringe and didn't give me the best results, so I decided to just look at triple Geo teams for him, in which using either Illawa or Agora will give you good results, and they both end up being teams that give around 100k DPS, which is far better than anything Itto could have run before. And I know some people might be like, oh, look at this wheelchair team, haha, he's getting wheelchaired. But the thing is that for one, Goro's C6 is team-wide, so Linnea and Columbina are also benefiting from it. Illawa also gives a team-wide 50 CV at C6, and the damage Itto is doing here is the same that he normally does in his hyper carry teams or hyper carry-ish teams, while also having sub DPS that are able to do relative damage to him. Itto's best teams have always had strong sub DPS on them since its inception, so blame Hoyoverse for not making a strong defense buffer. Anyways, that is all the Geo DPS covered. As you can see, all of them now comfortably push 100k DPS and above, which is funnily enough around the mid Natlin levels of power. I don't know what's happening to this game's meta, man. Outside of Geo DPS, there actually isn't really a point to using Linnea. Unlike someone like Llama, she doesn't reduce the resistance shred of Hydro, and to be fair, Hydro DPSs would prefer to run NFA regardless. And also with how Lunar Crystallize works, you would just potentially get less Moondrift procs if you aren't running a consistent driver for Geo reactions. So there isn't really teams outside of a Geo DPS that'd be worth running for Linnea. There is a Nuvolette team running around that can be used, but I just don't think it's worth evaluating or calculating seriously, as it's both a bad Nuvolette and a bad Linnea team. But if you really want to, that is something you can do. And also I'm pretty sure all of the teams I included in this video are using Columbina. For Zibai, she can of course be replaced by Ino, but for everyone else, you're generally better off replacing Columbina with Furina and running triple Geo teams. The performance of that is obviously going to be worse, but should still be fine enough, and allows your Geo DPS to have a higher majority of the damage. But yeah, the Geo Renaissance is here. Just pull for Columbina and John sub DPS and they will do all the damage in your team. I'm yapping. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Linnea, as I'd love to hear and respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, thank you so much for your continued support. It means the world to me. I wish you guys have an amazing day. Thank you to everyone else for watching. Make sure to commission me, please, and check out my Twitter down below. And with that, I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.